Mabuhay ug madayaw everyone. So today we were going to discuss the global demography. But before we proceed, let's talk about the learning objectives. So first, achieve knowledge about the size, composition, organization, and distribution of the population. And second, describe the trend of population growth, which describe the past evolution, present distribution, and future change in the population of an area. And lastly, identify the trend of population and the population distribution, which describes the trends of population and its relationship with the different aspects of social parameters like education level, extent of urbanization, employment, and living standard. So let's proceed to introduction. For much of human history, demographic patterns were reasonably stable. Human population grew slowly and the age structure, birth rates, and death rates of the population changed only gradually. So, sa karamihan ng kasaysayan ng tao, mabagal ang paglaki ng populasyon at mga pagbabago sa edad. Birth rates at death rates ay nangyayari ng dahan-dahan at tuloy-tuloy at walang malaking o biglaan na pagbabago. In the past 50 years, however, this trend of long-term stability has given way to the biggest demographic upheaval in history, an upheaval that is still running its course. In the developed world, a sharp post-war rise in fertility was followed by an equally sharp fall. These changes in fertility transformed age structures through the creation of a baby boom generation. In the last 50 years, population trends have changed a lot. What used to be stable has turned into the biggest shift in population history, and it's still happening. In which are developed countries, birth rates went up quickly and after World War II. This was the baby boom, but then dropped just as fast. This big change in birth rate changed the age balance in society, creating a large group of people born during that boom. After World War II, Japan experienced a baby boom. Millions of babies were born in a short period. But starting in 1970s, unti-unting bumaba ang mga bilang ng mga ipinapanganak bawat taon. Ngayon, karamihan sa mga pinapanganak noong baby boom ay matatanda na. At ang Japan ay isa sa mga bansang may pinakamatandang populasyon sa buong mundo. Thomas Malthus says that the power of population is so superior to the power of the earth to produce subsistence of man, that premature death must in some shape of other visit of the human race. Sinabi ni Malthus na ang populasyon ng tao ay dumadami ng mas mabilis kaysa sa kakayahan ng mundo na mag-produce ng sapat na pagkain at mga yaman o kabuhayan upang suportahan ang lahat. Dahil dito, kung patuloy na tataas ang populasyon ng mabilis, may mangyayaring uri ng maagang kamatayan tulad ng gutom, sakit o digmaan upang mabawasan ang bilang ng tao. Ito ang paraan ng kalikasan upang magkabalanse ang mga bagay.
What is demography? Demography, the word demography is a combination of two Greek demos, word meaning people, and graphy meaning science. Thus, demography is the science of people. Demography is statistical and mathematical study of the size, composition, age, spatial distribution of human population, and how these features change over time. Data are obtained from a census of the population and from linguistic record of events like birth, date, migration, marriage, divorce, disease, and employment. The study of statistics such as birth, death, income, or the incidence of disease, which illustrate the changing structure human population. Number 2, historical of demography. Demography and demography could have been around for many thousands of years. In fact, the civilization of ancient Rome, ancient Greece, India, and China discuss demography extensively extensively. In ancient Greece, Epicurus, Thucydides, Herodotus, Pulus, Protagoras, and Aristotle wrote about the subject. Among the Romans, writer Catu, Calamela, Spectatus, Marcus, Aurelius, and Cicero expressed important ideas regarding demography. Middle Age and later, Christian thinker in the Middle Age devoted much of that time refuting the classical ideas on demography. In 1662, John Grant wrote Natural and Political Observation made upon the bill of mortality. Although he was a haberdasher, he was also one of the first population specialists. At the end of the 18th century, Thomas Robert Malthus, FRS, concluded the population would be subject to exponential growth and left unchecked neo-Malthusianism in the advocacy of human population planning to ensure resource and environment integrities for current and future human population as well as for other species. And Britain, the term Malthusian can also refer more specifically to argument made in favor and preventive birth control, hence organizations such as the Malthusian League.
Elements of demography. So in elements of demography, there is size, composition, and distribution. So first is the size. So size is increase or decrease. So this means how many people, no? The number of the population, if taga-increase ba siya or decrease. O siya ang size. Then composition, this is the sex and the age group. So this means what kind of people make up the population, such as how many male or female and how old they are. Mo na siya ang composition. Ginapangutanan niya ako, ginakuha niya kung pinaunsa kadaghan ang lalaki o babae and ilahang mga edad. Mo na siya ang composition. The next is the distribution. Territory. This means where people live. Kung asa ang mga tao nagpuyo. Like ba in the cities ba sila, towns, or either in the countryside. Muna siya ang distribution. Next is the world population. This is the total number of people living on Earth. So, for example, sa world population is in December 2017, no, a population counts was made, no, na predict sa UN o sa United Nations na ang number of population na will grow about 11.8 billion by the year of 2100 years. Will grow daw ang population. The next is the demography focuses its attention on three readily observable phenomena. So natay kaning three is the changes in population size, the changes in population composition. Next is the where people live. So kaning changes in population size is are there more people or fewer people over time? So mas daghan ba or gadaghan ba or gagamay ba ang mga tao sa paglipas ng panahon? Mo na siya ang changes in population size. The next is changes in population composition. So, are there more old people, young people, men or women? mo na siya ang change in population composition. So, mas daghan ba ang bata, matanda, lalaki, or babae? The next is where people live. Are they moving to cities or staying in rural areas? No? Lumilipat ba sila sa mga lungsod or nanatili lang sila sa mga rural areas or sa mga lalawigan mo na siya? Terminologies of geography. So we have here the crude birth rate. The annual number of live births per 1,000 people is called the crude birth rate. So kaning crude birth rate is the number of babies born each year for every 1,000 people in a population. The next is the general fertility rate. The annual number of live births per 1,000 women of childbearing age, often taking to be from 15 to 49 years old, but sometimes from 15 to 44. So it's called the general fertility rate. So ano yung general fertility rate is, mo siya ang numbers of babies born each year for every 1,000 woman na nagaedad of 15 to 49 years old and sometimes 15 to 44. Then age-specific fertility rate is the annual number of live births per 1,000 women in particular age groups, usually aged 15 to 19, 20 to 24, is called the, or etc. It's called the age-specific fertility rate. So, kaning age-specific fertility rate is, mo siya ang numbers of babies born each year for every 1,000 women sad in a specific age group unang edad of 15 to 19 and 20 to 24, etc. The next is the crude death rate. The annual number of deaths per 1,000 people is called the crude death rate. Any crude death rate is the number of people who die each year for every 1,000 people in the population. The next is the infant mortality rate. The annual number of deaths of children less than 1 year old per 1,000 live births is called the infant mortality rate. So, kaning infant mortality rate is numbers of babies who dies before turning 1 year old out of every 1,000 babies na naborn. Mga namatay nga bata nga before sila nag-turning 1 year old out of 1,000 babies nga na ipang anak. Then next is the expectation of life or life expectancy. The number of years which an individual a given age could expect to rise at present mortality level is called the life expectancy. So life expectancy is the number of years that a person is expected to live based on the current death rates. Muna siya. The next is the total fertility rate. The number of live births per woman completing her reproductive life if her childbearing at age is reflecting current age-specific fertility rates is called total fertility rate. The total fertility rate is the total number of babies a woman expected to have. A woman nga dapat numbers of babies dapat niya ianak in her lifetime and current birth patterns to say the same. Next is the replacement level fertility is the average number of children a woman must have in order to replace herself with a daughter in the next generation. So, kani siya is average number nga dapat ianak sa babae to replace herself with a daughter para mo-continue in the next generation. Why babae? Tungod kay ang babae may mga anak and sila ang mo-continue in the next generation. Then next is the gross reproductive rate. The number of daughters who would be born to a woman completing her reproductive life at current age-specific fertility rate is called the gross reproduction rate. Kaning gross reproduction rate is kanang the number of daughters a woman expected to have during her life and current birth patterns para mo continue, no? Para mo continue ang ano siya? And next is the net reproductive ratio. It is the ratio of the expected number of daughters per newborn prospective mother who may not survive to and through the ages of childbearing. So kaning net reproductive ratio is diri niya ginatan-aw kung pila kabata na babae ang mabuhi hantod sa maabot sila sa edad nga sila yung mga anak. Mauna siya ang net reproductive ratio. The next is the stable population, a population that has constant crude birth and death rates for a long time. That percentage of people in every age class remains constant, or equivalently the population pyramid has unchanging structure. So kaning stationary population ay stable population is a population where birth and death rates have stayed the same for a long time, so the age structure doesn't change. The next is the stationary population. It is the population that is both stable and unchanging in size. So the difference between the crude birth rate and the crude death rate is 0. So kaning stationary population is a population that is stable and not growing or shrinking because equal sa births ang births is equal sa deaths. Mao na siya ang stationary population. The next is the biodemography. Biodemography is a new branch of human demography concerned with understanding the complementary biological demographic determinants of an interaction between the birth and death processes that shapes individuals, cohorts, and populations. So, ang biodemography is, ito ay sangay ng demografiya na pinag-aaralan kung paano nakakaapekto ang biolohiya o the biological and sa kalusugan, edad, fertility, kamatayan sa pagbabago ng populasyon. So, example is paano nakaapekto ng pagtanda, no? Kakayahang magkaanak o mga sakit ang dami ng takbo ng populasyon. Ano siya ang biodemography.
Importance of demography for economy. So it has to understand the growth of the rate economy and the growth rate of the population. If the population is increasing at a faster rate, the pace of development of the economy will be slow. In such a case, the government has to undertake collective measures to control the growth of population and to accelerate the development of the economy. Rapid population growth reduces per capita income, lowers the standard of living, resulting in mass unemployment and underemployment. It may cause environmental damage and puts an extra burden on existing social infrastructure. Hence, we can conclude that the study of demography is very important to an economy. For economic planning data relating to the present trend and population growth help the planner in formulating policies for the economic plan of the country for the future, considering the population growth rate targets of agricultural and industrial products, of social and basic services like schools and other educational institutions, hospitals, houses, electricity, and transportations, and fixed in case of high population growth. It is used in formulating the policy to control the birth for society. Rapid population growth reduces per capita income, lower the standard of living, resulting in mass employment and underemployment. It puts stress on basic services like water, electricity, transport, and communications, public health, education, etc. It may also result in immigration and unplanned urbanization, which further led to unvariability of civic amenities and the law and order problem. Hence, to have check on this problem, there is necessity of the study of demography. For political systems, the information obtained through the study of demography is used by the election commission to the demarcation of constituencies. It also gives information about the increase and decrease in the number of voters. Political parties can frame their policies and election manifestos.
So, effects of human overpopulation. So, human overpopulation is a major environmental problem. It worsens global warming, pollution, species extinctions, and overuses of natural resources like land and fossil fuels. But the effects go beyond the environmental, leading to serious challenge in many areas of life. So, ang effect of human population means there are many people living on area for the resources available. This causes many problems for the environmental and human life. So, where more people live in place, so they use more water, food, energy, and land. This leads to more pollution, waste, and the destruction of forests and animal habitats. It also increases the demand for jobs, houses, and healthcare, which can lead to poverty in your living conditions. For example, India is example of human overpopulation, so it's over 1.4 billion people. Cities like Mumbai and Delhi are crowded. This causes problems like lack of housing, traffic jams, air pollutions, and fall, hospital and school. Unang example sa effects of human overpopulation. So number one is the loss of fresh water. Although 75% of Earth is covered in water, only a tiny amount, around 0.003%, is clean and accessible for human use. Most fresh water is either frozen and glaciers are polluted. By 2030, nearly half the world's populations may face severe water shortages as demand increases, especially in developing countries. So, ang loss of fresh water is even 75% Earth has of the lot of water. Most of it is salt water in ocean. So, only a tiny region amounts of fresh water that human can easily use. Pollution and climate change then make it even harder to access clean water. For example, is dagan sa mga nasod or sa Africa or sa Middle East is nagatubang sila sa kakakulangan yan sa tubig sa tuig sa 2030. So halos dito siya katunga sa population sa kalibutan. So possible na mawadaan sila tubig and mawadaan sila nga igo nga limpyo nga tubig is mo na siya ang example sa loss of fresh water. So number 2 is species extinction. So human actions are causing species to extend 1,000 to 10,000 times faster than the natural rate. So according to the IUCN, nearly 1/3 of the species they studied are the endangered. Causes include climate change, so habitat destructions, overgrazing, and poaching. If this continues, half of plant and animal species could disappear in the coming decades. So, ang species extinction daw is kanaganing human activities to deforestations, pollutions, and overhunting are causing plants and animals to die out at very fast rates, much faster than normal. So, for example, is ang IUCN reported that nearly one-third of species they studied are at risk of extinction. So the things don't change half the species all Earth will disappear in a few decades. Is one example sa species extinction. Number 3 is ang human overpopulation. So according to Harvard, studies predicts that almost all of the 2.1 billion population increase over the next 40 years will happen in less developed countries, especially Africa. These regions are already struggling to provide enough water, so food, energy, and housing. This rapid growth may lower living standards and lead to serious problems for public health, safety, and economic development. So, ang human overpopulation is the world population is growing quickly, and especially developing countries. This pressures on food, water, and housing. Muna siya ang human overpopulation. For example, is in parts of Africa and Asia are pasture nga napagtubo gani sa populasyon. So naglisod pud sa mga gobyerno sa paghatag og limpyo nga water sama sa kuryente ug serbisyo medikal para sa tanan. Mao na ang example sa human overpopulation. So number 4 is depletions of natural resources. So ang depletion of natural resources is as the human population continues to explore finite natural resources such as fossil fuels, fresh waters, Arabide line, coraxal reefs, and conifer forests continue to plummet, which is placing competitive stress on the fuel-like containing resource are leading to a diminished quality of life. So, na siya ang depletions of natural resources is we are using up earth is naga-resource sila like oil, clean water, then forest and farmland, and faster the cap replace. So for example is ang coral reefs or drying. Forests are being cut down and pastel land is turning into deserts and because of human activity. Mo na siya example sa depletions of natural resources. So number 5 is emergence of new epidemics and pandemics. So environmental damage and population growth increase the spread of diseases. Poor nutrition weakens the immune system of billions, making them more vulnerable. Diseases like malaria and tuberculosis continue to kill millions species because of the poor of nutrition. So ang emergence of new epidemics and pandemics is ang human overpopulation is one of the biggest problems facing environment today. It makes global warming is worse, increase pollution, and speed up the extinction of plants and animals, and causes over farming and overuse of natural resources like land and fossil fuels. These resources are being used up faster than nature can replace them. But the effects go beyond the environment. They also affect health, food, safety, and living conditions. Muna siya ang emergence of new epidemics and pandemics. So, na ako yung example, So, example is, in countries like India and Nigeria. So, the fast-growing population, so past pressures on land, so water and energy, like mga etc. This leads to more mga shortage of food and clean waters. One example sa emergence of new epidemics and pandemics. Muna siya example.
So now let us proceed to number 6, which is the less freedom, more restrictions. As population densities increase, laws, which serve as primarily a social mediator of relations between people, will more frequently regulate interactions between human and develop a need for more rules and restrictions of regulate these interactions. So, pag daghan og tao ang nakapuyo nga dugol, syempre mas madalas dyan na sila nga magkakasalamuha o ka-communicate mo nang para ma-maintain na maayos o okay ang tanan, nagbuhat og mas daghan nga laws para mapanatili ang kaayusan o kanang katarungan sa ilang pakikitungo sa asagusan. So, number 7, the more intensive farming practices. Intensive farming boosts food production and helps preserve non-agricultural land, but it's now a major environmental threat, driving global warming, ecosystem loss, parasite outbreaks, and causing 80% of tropical deforestation. Intensive farming practices are also known as industrial farming, focus on maximizing crop and livestock production on a given area of land. Intensive farming helps grow more food and save space, but it also harms the environment, causing deforestation, global warming, and damage to the ecosystem. Like for example, a large palm oil plantation in a tropical country kay nagaputol og libo-libo nga mga palm tree to make space for more crops. This increases food and oil production. Pero naguba ang kagubatan o kanang napiktuhan ang mga hayop and it releases carbon into the air, contributing to climate change. So number 8, increased habitat loss. Human overpopulation is a major driving force behind the loss of ecosystem, such as rainforest, coral reefs, wetlands, and Arctic ice. Rainforest once covered 14% of the Earth's land surface. Now they cover a bare 6%, and experts estimate that the last remaining rainforest could be consumed in less than 40 years and certainly by the end of the century at the current rate of deforestation. Increased habitat loss refers to the reduction and destruction of natural areas, leading to a decrease in biodiversity and potentially the extinction of species. Too many people on Earth is causing big problems for nature. As more people are born, we need more space, food, and resources. This leads destroying important places like rainforest, coral reefs, wetlands, and Arctic ice. For example, rainforests used to cover 14% of the land on Earth. Now they only cover 6%. If we keep cutting down at this rate, they could be almost gone in less than 40 years. Number 9. Increased global warming and climate change. According to the Center of Biological Diversity, the largest single threat to the ecology and the biodiversity of the planet in the decades to come will be global climate disruption due to the build of human-generated greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. People around the world are beginning to address the problem by reducing their carbon footprints through less consumption and better technology. Increased global warming. A key aspect of climate change refers to the long-term rise in Earth's average surface temperature. primarily caused by human activities like burning fossil fuels, which release greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. The Center of Biological Diversity says that climate change caused by pollution from things like cars and factories is the biggest danger to nature and wildlife in the future. But people are starting to help by using less energy and choosing cleaner technology to reduce pollution. Number 10. Elevated the crime rate. As human overpopulation drives resources and basic necessities such as food and water to become scarcer, there will be increased competitiveness for these resources, which leads to elevated crime rates due to drug cartels that theft by people in order to survive. As Asia Tariq of the Pakistan Times states, it has been observed that the countries which have balanced population crime rate is very low in such regions. When people are not provided with the basic necessities, it elevates crime rate. A high crime rate refers to a situation where the frequency of criminal activity is elevated in a specific geographic area of population. When there are too many people and not enough resources like food and water, people start competing for them. This can lead to more crime and stealing or joining gangs just to survive. Asia Tariq says that in places where the population is under control, crime rates are lower because people have what they need. So now let's proceed to the feminist perspective. Feminism has provided some new perspective to the discourse on human rights over the years. Contemporary feminist scholarship has taught to critique the liberalism on which the conception of normal equality and the international human rights laws has been derived on a number of grounds. Feminist perspectives analyze gender inequalities and advocate for women's rights and empowerment. Feminist perspectives have significantly reshaped the understanding of human rights by highlighting how traditional frameworks often fail to address women's unique experiences. Many feminist scholars critique the liberal foundation of human rights law, arguing that they are centered around male experiences and overlook the specific challenges women face. Two major issues are the male-focused nature of human rights and the false divide between public and private life, which causes the law to ignore abuse that often happen in the home. This has led to a shift away from simply demanding equality with the men toward recognizing and addressing the specific needs and realities of women.